in Super Mario Bros. Is this game still enjoyable today? And if so, what makes it stand out from most of the modern games? Well, before the review, you should know at least a little history. So after the release of Mario Bros., Nintendo began to shift their priorities from the arcade to the home console market, in Japan at least. As I've stated previously, the US was going through an industry crash that resulted in the waning popularity of video games. In 1983, Nintendo would release the Family Computer, or Famicom, to store shelves in Japan. After a few years on the market, one of the biggest releases to come out was Super Mario Bros., released September 13th, 1985. A little over a month later, the Famicom would be released in the US, redesigned and rebranded as the Nintendo Entertainment System. At its launch was the game itself, Super Mario Bros., though there is some debate as to whether the game was released in October or November of that year. Regardless, Super Mario Bros. Would go on to become a staple of households, as well as putting Nintendo on the home console map and establishing them as the video game juggernaut they are today. The game would sell around 40 million units in its lifetime, becoming one of the highest selling games for many years to come. Well, enough with the history lesson. Let's put away those books, get out our controllers, and play some Super Mario Bros. Okay, let's start with the story, which I'm sure most people are familiar with, but there are some more details in this game compared to future ones. The land you travel through is the Mushroom Kingdom. One day, Bowser, who was known as Koopa in Japan, invades the land and turns all of the inhabitants, known as Toads, into stones, bricks, and even plants. The only one capable of removing the curse is Princess Peach, or Toadstool in the United States. But Bowser kidnaps Peach, and it's up to the Mario Brothers to rescue her and save the kingdom. I know the story is pretty much the same, but I mean, Bowser turned the Toads into bricks. That means anytime you break a brick, you're killing Toads. Well anyways, let's talk about the aesthetics. Graphically speaking, I don't think that this game has aged the best, and even for NES standards, this game is pretty subpar. However, this was an earlier game released in the system's life, so I can give it some slack. And remember, in this time, in the US at least, the most recent and relevant consoles were the Atari 2600 and ColecoVision, so a game like this was a big step up. That being said, the game still looks very simple. I will say that everything at least is very distinguishable and easy to see. Gameplay-wise, it's a big improvement. The game is split up into 8 worlds with 4 levels each. There are ground levels, underground levels, water levels, and a castle, which is at the end of every world. You control Mario with a D-pad and use A to jump and B to run and shoot fireballs. Speaking of which, power-ups. Now in this game there are only 3. The mushroom, which makes Mario bigger, the fire flower, which allows Mario to shoot fireballs from his hands and kill almost every enemy, and the Starman, which makes Mario an invincible and unstoppable machine of death. However, there are some limitations in this first installment. The most annoying thing is that one hit from an enemy with the fire flower will revert Fire Mario back to Small Mario. Why? Later games would remedy this by only reverting Mario back to his big form. And to be honest, this is the first game, so I guess I can forgive it. This time. As you go throughout the game, you will come across quite a few enemies. Goombas, which are no real threat and go down with one hit to the head. Koopa Troopas, which retract into their shells when jumped on and can be hit from the side and go zooming in said direction. Paratroopas, which are just flying Koopa Troopas. Bloopers that can swim across the screen in water levels to catch you off guard. Cheap Cheeps, which are just fish. Piranha plants that come out of pipes to again catch you off guard. Hammer Brothers, who like to throw their hammers and can easily kill you if you're not careful. Fuzzy Beetles, who are just Koopa Troopas that are immune to the Fire Flower. And Bullet Bills, who are also immune to the Fire Flower. They can also trigger some weird hitboxes, like here. Seriously, what happened? There are also Lakitus, which like to throw spikies down at you, though in all honesty, they're pretty easy to avoid. In addition to these enemies, there are also natural hazards in the form of fire bars and fireballs, which spurt upward in fire levels. The 4th level of each world is the castle level, where you face off against Bowser, who is actually just enemies disguised as Bowser for 7 of the worlds, as well as rescue Toads that tell you that our princess is in another castle. Now around World 5 or 6, the fake Bowser starts throwing hammers similar to the Hammer Brothers, but if you plan your jumps just right, he's no big deal. In the 8th castle, you face off against the real Bowser, who is really easy to beat via the Fire Flower. Just a few hits and he's down for good. If you manage to beat Bowser, then you rescue the princess, who gives you the option to play a harder version of the game, which is pretty much replacing Goombas with Fuzzy Beetles. To be honest, having an ending was a big deal. Before this, most arcade and home console experiences were just games that looped until you died, and your goal was to get a high score. While there is a high score in this game, the main goal is to save the princess. I should also probably mention that there is a two-player mode. I mean, after all, it is Super Mario Brothers. In this mode, each player alternates when one dies. It's also in this mode that the second player controls Luigi. I should have mentioned this in my Mario Brothers review, but Luigi is my favorite of the two brothers. I know that's kind of out of place, but moving on. The game starts you off with 3 lives, but you can get more by either discovering 1-up mushrooms or collecting 100 coins. If you lose all of your lives at any point, it's game over and back to the title screen. This is pretty punishing for a game like this, but there is a way around it. If you hold the A button as you die on your final life, then press start while holding A still, you can resume on the world you died on. This is nice to have, but it is kind of stupid that I have to use a code to continue where I was. Granted, it's not a complicated code like the Konami code, and there are warp zones that you can find to get back to the world you died on, but still. In terms of music, there isn't much, but what is here is classic video game staples. The overworld theme, which will become the Super Mario Bros. Theme in general, the underground theme, the water theme, the invincibility theme, and the castle theme. These themes have been redone, remixed, recreated in all sorts of ways, but I still think that the original sounds are still amazing. Overall, Super Mario Bros. Is enjoyable, fun, and at certain points, challenging. I haven't played through the entire game in a while, with the exception of this review, but when doing so, I was having a really good time. Granted, I was dying quite a bit, but again, I'm a bit rusty when it comes to playing this entire thing. For a launch or early NES game, it may feel dated at some points, but it still is fun. The game has been re-released on several platforms, but I want to take a quick look at 2 of them, Super Mario Bros. Deluxe for the Game Boy Color, and Super Mario Bros. On the Game Boy Advance. Now, Super Mario Bros. Deluxe is a remake/port of the game, with some additional goodies included. The game allows you to play as either brother. I personally choose Luigi. But the one thing that holds you back is the screen crunch. Now, if that doesn't bother you, by all means, give it a shot. But a game like this needs all the screen you can have. It's good for a challenge, but I'd say nothing more. Now, Super Mario Bros. For the Game Boy Advance was a much more accurate port of the game. No screen crunch, but the graphics and controls are just a little off. If it's your first time playing the game, I'd say avoid this version. But even with all of its flaws, it's still a good attempt at getting the whole game on a portable system. The best option today is on the Switch NES Online app, which gives you save states and additional control and picture options. But if you have the money, then the NES version isn't bad either. In the end, while it's not my favorite Mario game by a long shot, it was a good start to an amazing series. Now, when a game like Super Mario Bros. Sells millions of copies, a sequel is almost always a priority. So join me next time when we look at the game's successor, Super Mario Bros. 2. Wait, this is the US version. I can't look at this one just yet. I have to look at the original Super Mario Bros. 2. Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. Oh boy. Well, I'll see you in the next review. Well, that's enough of the history lesson. Let's put away those books and get our controllers and do it. Let's do it again.